On May 26, 2013, a tugboat called the Jascon 4 capsized in the Atlantic Ocean about 20 miles off the coast of Nigeria. The vessel sank in about 100 feet of water. 11 of the 12 people on board died. The 12th was a ship's cook named Harrison Oken. He survived for 60 hours at the bottom of the ocean, inside an air pocket the size of a bathroom. He was found alive by a saturation diving team sent to recover the bodies. What they found instead is one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever documented. And the footage of the moment they discovered him is one of the most viscerally affecting things on the internet. Here is how it happened. It was around 4:30 in the morning when the ship went down. Oken was in the toilet when the vessel began to list sharply. By the time he understood what was happening, the Jascon 4 was already capsizing. He managed to push through flooding corridors in total darkness and make his way to the officer's bathroom, which happened to be positioned in a section of the ship that trapped air as it inverted. He had no light. He had no food. He had a can of Coca-Cola and a bottle of water he had grabbed in the chaos. The water outside was cold, around 12 degrees Celsius, and he could hear sounds he described as sharks feeding on the bodies of his crewmates in the surrounding compartments. He stood on an upturned sink to keep his head above the rising water. He sang hymns. He prayed. He tore cushion foam off the walls and built a small platform to rest on when he could no longer stand. He kept track of time by counting, then lost track, then stopped trying. At some point, he became certain he was going to die. He said later that he made peace with it. On the third day, a diving team from the Dutch company DCN Diving arrived at the wreck. Their assignment was body recovery. They expected to find 12 bodies. The lead diver, Nico van Heerden, was working through the flooded corridors when he felt something touch his hand in the darkness. He reported later that his first instinct was that it was a dead body floating in the current. Then the hand grabbed him. Oken had been in the dark for 60 hours. He had no way of knowing how long he had been there, or whether anyone was even looking. When the diver's torch appeared through the water, he described it as incomprehensible. He had stopped believing rescue was possible. The footage captured by the dive team's cameras shows the moment of contact. A hand reaches out from the darkness. Van Heerden recoils, then immediately communicates back to the surface. There is a survivor. The voice on the recording from the surface team, the moment they understand what they are hearing, is the sound of people processing something they did not think was possible.
Getting Okene out was not simple. He could not simply swim to the surface. After 60 hours in a pressurized air pocket, his body had absorbed nitrogen at depth. A rapid ascent would have killed him from decompression sickness. He had to be transferred into a pressurized diving bell and brought through a slow, controlled decompression process over the following days. He emerged alive. He was taken to hospital, treated, and recovered fully. Harrison Okene subsequently became a saturation diver himself. The experience, nearly dying trapped in the dark at the bottom of the ocean, apparently left him with an understanding of the underwater environment that he chose to pursue professionally rather than avoid. When journalists asked him why, he gave an answer that was direct and somewhat difficult to argue with. He said that God had clearly kept him alive for a reason, and he intended to find out what it was. The JASCON 4 incident is studied in survival psychology and emergency response training because it illustrates a set of principles that are counterintuitive to most people. Okene survived not because of training or equipment, but because of the decisions he made in the first minutes, moving through the ship rather than staying still, finding the air pocket, managing his breathing, rationing his water, and because of something harder to quantify, but consistently described by long-term survival case studies as the single most important factor. He did not stop believing he could survive. Even when he had stopped believing rescue was coming, he had not stopped functioning. He kept moving. He kept building. He kept counting. 60 hours, 1 can of Coca-Cola, complete darkness, the sound of what he believed were sharks in the corridors. He was found because a diving team sent to collect bodies felt a hand reach out and grab them in the dark. History is full of extraordinary things. Most of them happened to ordinary people who simply refused at the critical moment to stop. Hit subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.